If I may just interrupt for 1 second, and Marsha, I'd like you to also be able to respond, but to also ask a question. There have been some concerns that are raised. There's some unusual coalitions of people on both sides here. For example, the New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms, and the church has been opposed to no fault, in part because they're concerned about divorce rates going up. Now, there's been some studies that indicate that initially divorce rates do go up in no fault states, and then after that, it's sort of, if the backlog, if you will, is taken care of, then that evens out. Could you address that issue?
Well, you know, we work in coalition with interesting people, and certainly the Catholic Church has their opinion on why they oppose no-fault divorce. You know, the National Organization for Women is not in this to make people stay together, to be the moral police in any way, shape, or form. What we're concerned about is when a divorce happens, because we know it does, that women and children fare well on the other end. We know that 95% of divorces are settled out of court. That is the best possible situation that we have right now. In terms of the domestic violence issue, what we've been saying to the legislature over and over again throughout the years is that you must do something to help victims of domestic violence when it comes to divorce. That's an easy fix. They need to amend the cruel and inhuman treatment provision in divorce, and they need to hold judges accountable for the decisions that they're making. The problem with our court system right now is that when a woman has a laundry list of offenses where she goes into court, or it's in family court. When she gets a divorce, it's in Supreme Court. So by the time she goes to get a divorce, the judge will say to her, oh, those offenses happened years ago. We don't care about that. That's been settled. Well, they need to be able to look at that cruel and inhuman ground and say, yes, those issues of domestic violence that have happened throughout the years are relevant to this divorce, and they need to be granting divorces. That's holding judges accountable. That's making sure that they are looking at the statute the way it should be. And, you know, I think that there are times when there are women that don't leave for certain reasons, and suddenly 25 years later, their husband comes to them and says, I don't want you anymore. I want out. Well, is she now then told that there was no fault in that marriage?
Senator,
I think that's an insult.
Senator, are you concerned, indeed, that this could be, that what Marsha is saying is true, that it actually in some way takes away the power of a woman, her leverage, if you will, particularly in a situation where she is the weaker party in a divorce proceeding?
All right. First of all, Marsha is mixing apples and oranges. Let's start there. I mean, it makes a great fruit salad, but it doesn't have anything to do with law. What we're talking about here is that there are a body of women who are in domestic situations, and we're saying that what no fault says, they don't have to prove fault in order to be granted a divorce. All they have to do is declare that the marriage has broken down for 6 months or more, and they are granted that divorce. One of the things that is very clear here, or should be made clear, is that no divorce is granted until all of the issues of maintenance are resolved, and all of the ancillary things that Marsha has contended that she is concerned about, particularly child support and maintenance. All of those things have to be ascertained before this divorce is granted. That's one body of people. There's another body of people who, in the same scenario, a man could come to his wife 25 years later, regardless as to whether she was happy, unhappy, stayed, didn't stay, and say, I don't want you anymore. There's nothing in law that's going to prevent him from suing for divorce. That's going to be a set of circumstances that exist. But that has to do with the fickleness of men or spouses. That has nothing to do with law. And so that this law won't make that easier or harder. And no law will make that easier or harder if the marriage is dissolved by either partner. One of the things that I think that Marsha fails to take into account is that that women can also get out of a dead marriage. And maybe that woman stayed in the marriage 25 years because the man wasn't abusive. He wasn't there were no real causes that she could take into court and say, I want a divorce. Because the state of New York meant you have to prove fault. Without the ability on the part of women to get out of dead marriages, they stay. And they stay because they're afraid of losing all the things that they've gained. We're saying that with the PMI and with counseling fees, even if they're the less moneyed spouse, their ability to have equitable representation in court is there, and their ability to be able to fight for what they need for themselves and their children is equal to that of the moneyed spouse.
Senator,
so I don't. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask. Wait, hold on. Unfortunately, clearly we could do an entire segment on no-fault divorce, but we're not going to be able to have time. So let me ask before we do this. Let me ask, Senator, if you feel that you need to close in any way before I allow Marsha to respond to your statement just then.
All right. If this is going to be my last chance to respond, then let me just say this. One of the things that also becomes important is that all three of these bills go together. No fault, PMI, and counsel fees. And it's very interesting to me that Marsha now denigrates this bill when she has been trying in the Assembly to get them to create an omnibus bill that had all three parts. So I think it's a little disingenuous. And I'm saying that because I think that the kinds of comments that she has chosen to make about me and my colleagues in the Senate they even border on being more than disingenuous. They're really slanderous. And I think